District at One World Trade Center. And so this is really the pinnacle of the downtown Manhattan skyline. It's the highest point in New York City. So Manhattan, where we are, is by far the most densely populated and highly developed part of New York City. Most people understand that, but it's often a surprise when they learn that Manhattan is also by far the smallest borough in land area. So let's go in a big circle and point out, or at least describe, the other bigger areas that are surrounding the building so we can understand when we get peeks what we're looking at and really understand the city a little better. So we'll just go in a quick big circle, right? Right now you're facing south. That means to your left is east. So from this side of the building, we can usually see the East River. All right, across is Brooklyn. That's where most New Yorkers live. It's the most populous borough, 2.6 million permanent residents. So most of the neighborhoods out there are low-rise bedroom communities. If you're ever in the same room with a Brooklynite, you know it right away, right? There are a few clusters of taller towers near the river and industrial zones all throughout Brooklyn, right? So a lot of different types of neighborhoods and a lot of people in Brooklyn. Just north of Brooklyn is Queens. It's across the East River from Midtown Manhattan. It also wraps around the east side of Brooklyn. That is the largest borough in land area. Both of New York's airports are in Queens, and the most diverse population in this country. There's close to 150 different languages and distinct dialects just in Queens. So, according to the Endangered Language Alliance, this is the highest concentration of languages in one spot anywhere in the world. So Queens is truly the global melting pot. It is a remarkable part of town. At the other end of Manhattan, you have the Harlem River. Right across that, the Bronx is the only piece of New York City on the continent. New York City is mostly a collection of islands, many different islands. The Bronx is the only piece of New York City on the mainland of the United States. Great culture and diversity in the Bronx as well, great food from around the world, and great attractions like the Bronx Zoo, the New York Botanical Gardens, big beautiful parks, and my favorite thing, the best Italian food in New York City is up in the Bronx, all right? And then behind me, out across Upper New York Bay, is Staten Island. We can't see it at all, but Staten Island is very different from the other boroughs. It's the least dense, the least populated, the least developed part of New York City, all because it's the only borough not connected to another one with the train line, all right? So the subways are so responsible for the activity in New York City that there's no subway line running to your borough. It's kind of like you're in the suburbs. So that's often what it feels like when you're on Staten Island. So that's the city, that's the metropolis. Manhattan, the Bronx, Queens, Brooklyn, and Staten Island, all right? I pointed to where those things actually are in relation to the building in case you get a glimpse. To your right, what's there? Just west of the building, the mighty Hudson River separates New York from the state of New Jersey, all right? On a clear day, and maybe, if you were here a little while ago, you can see many different towns and cities in northern New Jersey, all right? If you saw any tall buildings lining the west shore of the Hudson directly across from where we are, that is Jersey City, all right? And there's probably about 50 other cities you can see on a clear day from up here right now. But surrounding the building, on the other three sides, just about as far as the eye can see, on the clearest day, one big city. So now we're going to dip into a story or two real quick about the big city on the east side of the Hudson River. Now this part is cool. I get to use the wristband in a different way and flip around the dial just like this, all right? So, these are all, as you can see, different New York City categories, and we could go wherever we want. We talked about the American Museum of Natural History a little while ago. Let's do something different. Let's talk about a couple of things in this category, because New York City is chock full of really interesting history, all right? But the city's not that old. It's not even 400 years old. Coming up in 2024, New York City will celebrate its quadricentennial. By the way, I'm including in that math New Amsterdam, right? Because when the British took over New Amsterdam, there wasn't a battle. All of the Dutch people stayed. They changed the name and the allegiance of the city, but it starts with the founding of New Amsterdam in 1624. So you add all that together, the Dutch city, the British city, the American city, not even 400 years, but a lot of really interesting stories in that time, because for that entire time, the opportunity in the city has attracted the biggest risk takers from around the world. So in New York City, we are constantly getting an influx of really interesting new stories. Okay, so I don't know where to go. You know what? I'm going to talk about the Empire State Building again because I love it, and I'll go on from there, right? It's a beautiful building in Midtown Manhattan, and if you were lucky enough today, you could see the Empire State Building. It is the marker for Midtown Manhattan. So we are at the quintessential downtown skyscraper. But in my mind, the quintessential skyscraper in all of the world is this beautiful building from 1931. This is an Art Deco masterpiece, in my opinion. So, like I said, the center of the city, 34th Street and 5th Avenue, took this building, the builders of the building, 1 year and 1 month. 13 months to build the Empire State Building. That's unthinkable today for a building of this scope and size, right? So there were really, a lot of energy put into this building, and the Empire State Building is general office space, all right? So that's the same thing as the World Trade Center and Rockefeller Center, places like that. It's the opposite of the flagship building of a specific company who's building their own offices. So near this building, you have the Goldman Sachs Tower. In Midtown, you have the Bank of America Tower. You have the New York Times Tower, the Chrysler Building, as it was originally built. Instead, in these buildings, World Trade Center, Rockefeller Center, the Empire State Building, we're trying to attract several different companies to put their headquarters and the offices in this building. The building opens up in the absolute worst year of the entire 20th century for the economy. 1931, the Great Depression had just gotten into full swing. That made it very difficult for the owners of the building to find companies to fill up the offices. But they knew a lot of people would be taking photographs of this building, so they hired people to go around turning on lights every night, so in the photographs it would appear to be more occupied than it actually was, right? But New Yorkers were way too savvy. They knew exactly what was going on. They started calling this the empty state building. It's the last thing you want people saying about your general office space building, right? So the thing that gets this building through the Depression, right? You're not going to believe this. The revenue from the observatory during the 1930s matched the revenue from the entire rest of the tower during that decade, right? So this is what helps the building avoid a foreclosure during the 1930s. Of course, the economy recovers and the building recovers, and nowadays there's a waiting list to have your business inside this building. One of the main reasons for that, in 2006, they poured in millions of dollars into the building to upgrade the building, and today it is actually one of the greenest, most energy efficient buildings in the entire city. A building, a giant skyscraper from 1931, is actually winning awards for energy efficiency today. A main part of that reason is the lighting system at the top of the building, not to really light up anything for the people inside the building, but just to show off the top of the building. There were floodlights on top of that building that would shine the upper sections at night, onto the upper sections at night. But now there's thousands of LED lights, and they're controlled by computer. So those patterns can change and move around, and even be timed to music from the radio station that broadcasts from the top of the building, right? Always, the colors on top of the Empire State Building mean something specific. Generally, a sporting event, a cultural parade, a charitable event. You can find out, you just go to esptowerlights.com, esptowerlights.com. They'll say, tonight the colors on the top of the building will be these for this reason. It's kind of like, I liken it to the bat signal above Gotham with the message. What else can we talk about? I don't know, let's talk about this building, why not? All right, so now we have the Midtown skyline taken care of with its, centerpiece. Let's talk about the centerpiece of the downtown skyline. Right, so the World Trade Center, 16 acres, right? This is really unique what's going on down here because it's the same thing as Penn Station and Grand Central Terminal wrapped into an office complex in Lower Manhattan. The site here was chosen in the mid-1960s because since 1908, the Port Authority controlled the tunnels that would take trains from New Jersey under the Hudson River and into this site. So that is the primary purpose of this office complex being sited right here on the west side of Lower Manhattan, right? So today it's the Oculus. If you've seen that white spiky thing, it's the new transportation hub where the commuter trains come in from one side and connect with the subway system on the other side. They built the office complex around that to make it efficient for the people from the city and from the suburbs to get to Lower Manhattan and to put to have those offices there. So the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey owns the land. The World Trade Center was created to give an economic boost to Lower Manhattan in the 1960s. And originally there were 7 buildings. They were all destroyed on September 11, 2001. Now, if you want to know about 2001, September 11, 2001, there's a lot of great ways to do it near here. We kind of focus on the events what the city is doing after 2001. But just next to the building is the memorial, which is absolutely gorgeous. It's really beautiful. The names of the victims and the waterfalls. And the museum is right in between those two and underneath the memorial. So the museum, $23. You need at least 2 to 3 hours to experience the museum. I really think everyone should, but you really should budget your time accordingly. You cannot do that in an hour. Really give yourself enough time, right? If you don't have that much time, just about a block south of the World Trade Center on Greenwich Street is the Tribute Center. It's all run by the victims' family members, and that's a little bit less money, and you can do that in about an hour. So you really have an hour only. It's the Tribute Center, but to do the museum, give yourself a full morning. Now, after 2001, there's a lot of debates about what should happen on this site. Some of the people said you can't build anything there after what happened, right? This is sacred space, so we just have to leave it alone and have a nice memorial. Another group said, also victims' family members, no, we have to rebuild on the site, of course, and we have to rebuild taller than we were before. We have to show the people who did this to us. We won't be kept out. But really, both camps won that argument because the entire site is both the memorial, it's September 11, 2001, and a brand new working office space. It's really wonderful. Another economic generator for downtown Manhattan. So all of the buildings around the memorial refer to the memorial in some way. This building refers mostly to the Twin Towers. So a few things about the building. The ground area footprint this building takes up is exactly the same as each of the Twin Towers. That was done on purpose, 210 feet square. You come up to the roof line and you have the spire going up from the roof, right? You see the rings sitting on the roof and then the spire going straight up. Those rings on the roof, those are the antenna equipment. It's mounted on those rings. So that means the spire counts towards the height of the building. So they really followed all the international rules to make sure that that spire would count. So if you measure to the top of the spire, it's 1,776 feet high to the top of the spire. That was a number that was built to on purpose because Americans use feet, and it's also the same year the Declaration of Independence was signed, which is the founding document of this country. So that was done on purpose. It's a symbolic building, right? It's referring to the birth of America, right? So that's why people call this the Freedom Tower. That is not official at all. It's not in any of the paperwork affiliated with the building. There's no sign on or near the building that says Freedom Tower, but I think it's a wonderful way to think about and refer to the building. To me, this is the Freedom Tower, but there's one other number built to the top of this building. Come back down to the bottom of the spire, the roof line, you can see, matches the height of the Twin Towers. Another number that was built to on purpose. So, when you're looking at this building from the Staten Island Ferry, from Brooklyn, from Queens, from New Jersey, you're seeing essentially that same space reclaimed in the sky right to the roof line that was lost on September 11th, 2001. So it's a very strong and safe building, very different than the Twin Towers. In fact, it's the strongest, safest skyscraper ever constructed, probably will be for a very long time. Just going to go over a couple quick things about that. The core of the building is made of concrete. It's the strongest concrete ever poured. 14,000 psi means that each square inch of the core of the building can withstand 7 tons of pressure before it is compromised. Every square inch. There's also concrete on the outside of the building at the base of the building, all right? There's many other safety features built into the building, but it's an extremely strong skyscraper. The core, by the way, goes 80 feet into the bedrock, right up to the roof line of the building. So that strong spine really keeps the building very rigid. On the outside, it happens to be an aerodynamic design, right? So the building doesn't sway. If you're feeling the sway, it's you, but don't worry, it's also everybody, but it's not the building, all right? 1 to 3 inches is the most that it will sway. It's imperceptible. Now, right now, we're at the top of those air vents on the 100th floor. We're 1,254 feet high, and you have a little bit more of the building above us. You also have 2 mechanical floors up above the observatory, which has 3 levels. Now, the World Trade Center, as it was meant to do in the 1960s, is also regenerating economic activity in downtown Manhattan in a big way. The mix of businesses downtown is very different than it was before 2001. The financial industry is still the biggest industry in downtown Manhattan, but now you have something called TAMI, Tech, Advertising, Media, and Information Technology, the biggest other industry in downtown Manhattan. So with all those media businesses in downtown Manhattan that used to be all in Midtown Manhattan, it's a new living neighborhood like it never was before, thanks for the World Trade Center. All right, I'm going to wrap it up. Just going to give my voice a break. We could talk quite a lot more about the World Trade Center if you're interested. Right now, though, we're going to go to the bus. All right, there's a lot happening in the city. So now we're going to shift to a couple of things happening in the city. Just a couple of things to point out. This is going to close in 2 days. The Metropolitan Museum of Art on the Upper West Side has a show right now. You can pay whatever you want to get into this museum. You can pay $2, $5. Michelangelo's sketches from his lifetime. The paper he actually drew on in the 14 and 1500s up there at the Met. They borrowed from institutions around the world for this exhibition. Queen of England loaned some from Michelangelo's sketches for this show. It's phenomenal. I've seen it twice. You can see this, all the permanent collection of the Met, and all the other temporary exhibits for whatever you want to pay while this exhibit is going on. So we have 2 days left to see Michelangelo. It's tremendous. It's fabulous. What else is happening in the city? Let's point out one other thing. Great thing.